Thanks for the intro, Stephanie, and thanks, Alison, for your presentation. I thought that was very insightful and a really inspiring story in a lot of cases, actually. It's given me a nice lead into building onto to what I want to talk to you today, which is, it's got the title of Embedding Learning into the Business, and it's more specifically just our story within Mars of how we've managed to get our corporate university really aligned. And the story I'm going to tell you, we're just going to talk a little bit about Mars. I'm going to give you an introduction to the size, the scope of the organisation, and then talk a little bit about how we've managed to understand the strategic goals and really align the learning side of the business with that. And then bringing it to life. So how have we managed to actually turn that into something that's a deliverable and really be able to get some credibility against it? And lastly, the fact that we're not being complacent. We've made some progress, but the journey continues, and we'll just talk a little bit about that. So, as an introduction to Mars, hopefully you recognise a few of the brands at the bottom, and I guess to just preempt the first question that always happens, I'm afraid I haven't brought any samples with me. It was just too many to bring, and I thought rather than feed a few, I wouldn't do that. But you can see that we're in the chocolate business, we're in the pet care business, we're in the drinks business, so it's a multi-segment organisation. And this truly shows that we are a global organisation as well, which is, it's great, it's a really good organisation to work for. But what the numbers show, and it's the net sales for a couple of years ago, but it really shows that we've got some business areas where we're really established, really mature. We've got some developing markets, and we've got the added challenge that we've got some real emerging markets with a whole different set of challenges and real, issues that we can face into. And just turning that into some facts and figures. So Mars is still a family-owned business. It's been privately owned for over 100 years. And in 2010, we had net sales of over $30 billion. So it's a large, large organisation. We've got over 71,000 associates spread across 70 countries. And breaking that down into sites, that's about 365 sites, of which a large number of those are also manufacturing units. Coupled with all of those, we've got very iconic brands which are known the world over. And as you can imagine, with a family-owned business that's been around for 100 years, we've really got a strong heritage and ingrained culture as well. So some really embedded principles and ways of working within that company. And the challenge that we were given a couple of years ago was really to start thinking about how can we take this organisation and start to establish a corporate university that not only has some world-class learning programs that start to unleash the potential of our associates, but also reflect that global nature, so keep things in mind that we are a truly global business, and start to think about these Mars principles, the culture, and how can we embed that into our programs. And that's a fairly big challenge for a learning organisation. And if that wasn't enough, we then had a couple of extra challenges or guiding principles that were thrown in around, rather than think about a tactical training organisation. So don't just stack the shelves high with a lot of training and a lot of courses and modules. Let's think about how they actually align with the strategy of the business. So that was an extra guiding principle we had. Along with taking a company that is very much a face-to-face network based company and start to think about how we can embed technology into some of this curricula. So moving away from just being purely dependent on instructor-led training. So all of that gave us quite a challenge, and it wasn't the first time that we'd started to look at building a corporate university. We'd started it probably in 2006, and we'd had a number of successes, but we also had a number of silos. So the functions had started, commercial had got their own training, sales had got their own, but there's very little common terminology or practices between them. All the different regions had started to do things a bit differently, and there was different messages and different ways of doing things. And we knew we wanted to move away from that into something that became a lot more of a brand promise, a real strong identification of what it is we were trying to do, and something that cascaded its way down through our organisation. So the first thing we had to do really was to think about how we're going to meet this challenge. And again, to Alison's point earlier, one of the key things we wanted to do was look at our people. And when we thought about strategy and alignment and how can we make sure that this is something that means something to the senior leaders and the family in Mars, if you talk to any of the Mars family, the most important asset they've got is their people. And therefore, if we could really align that alongside that that promise that we want to give to them, we've got something that we can deliver against. And we've got this strapline around preparing our associates to meet the challenges and opportunities of today, but it's an evolving world. We've got emerging markets, we've got a focus on corporate responsibility. How can we actually prepare them for the challenges of tomorrow as well? And in trying to communicate that, the biggest thing for us was, do we go and sit with the family of the senior leaders and start saying, this is what we promise we're going to do? Or can we do something a little bit more aspirational, just in order to stimulate their thinking and just get some real engagement with them at an emotional level? So we worked with an external company to prepare a video that really outlined our manifesto and our promise. And I'll share that video with you now so you can just see the sort of things that we were trying to aspire to.
Legends tell us that uncertain times can inspire acts of greatness, that everyday people can achieve the extraordinary. Good people standing up, finding a voice and using it to do the right thing, to make a difference and achieve success time and again, for themselves, our business, our culture, our planet and its people. It's these progressive, curious minds who aspire to something more, to redefine success, to be the best they can be, whatever they do, however they do it. Welcome to the new era of Mars University, empowering you to be truly legendary. We're the ally who'll help you stand tall and realize all your potential, even if you never knew you had it in you. We're the committed partner who shares your goal of winning, the mentor who'll keep you true to the path, even when times get tough, especially when times get tough. With world-class experiences that inspire and strengthen our culture, developing the skills and knowledge to deliver the very best every time, unique tools, connections and mindsets that encourage courageous acts, vision and insight that equip you to win tomorrow as well as today. It's your goal and your journey, but we're there when it counts, challenging what it really means to be a business, helping you devise and deliver fresh answers to every challenge, powerfully and effectively. Honourable people achieving amazing results across our great Mars businesses, growing in skills, influence and confidence with each new experience, making huge strides together, relishing the journey, and making it mean more for Mars and for the world. That's true greatness, the stuff of legend.
Okay, so some pretty ambitious and aspirational promises that we were making there. But what it did was it actually got people sitting and looking at it and thinking, wow, this actually does talk to what we want the business to be doing. We want to grow as a business. We want our associates to be able to step up to the challenge. Maybe Mars University is the way that we can actually develop our associates to do that. So that got a lot of emotional engagement, and it really started to stimulate the discussions around what does this look like, what's it going to mean. And alongside the manifesto, we did a lot of brand work as well. So we put some brand guidelines together to make sure that if people were talking about Mars University, there was some terminology that we wanted them to use, some language, some imaging, some branding, just to be true to actually what the promise was that we were making. And we made sure that that was represented in everything that we put out, whether it was newsletters, whether it was brochures, course information. That brand came to life. And we continue to reinforce that wherever we are. So these colours and these messages in any of the programmes, we make statements that just start to stick a little bit and really bring that brand into life. So that was all good stuff. We've done a lot of work of actually getting some engagement, of getting some support, sponsorship, recognition. The next step really was to start delivering something against it. Otherwise, that goodwill and the credibility would start to erode pretty quickly. So we then started to look at how can we now make an impact? How can we really start to deliver against it? And that was where we started to think about the programs we were going to deliver under the Mars U banner. And the first place to start really was with leadership. So we've done a lot of work to engage our leadership. We've got a very ambitious promise in Mars that every associate deserves a world-class line manager. So how could we actually bring some of that to life and support those promises through the program? So we started with leadership, and really we'd got a number of different courses scattered across the globe in terms of building great teams, managing performance, engagement, really consolidating those down into a small number of iconic programs that help people through their Mars journey. And in order to do that, we partnered with Lominger and started to think about what capabilities do we want people to be demonstrating and delivering as they work their way through the organisation. And this actually, from the bottom to the top, starts to show a journey through Mars. So at the bottom two there, you've got the individual contributor sort of capabilities that we'd look for. And then as you develop up through line management, through manager of managers, through senior leaders, those are the kind of capabilities we're looking to see people demonstrate. And then our programs needed to map against those particular capabilities. So again, you can see along the top the individual contributor, the people leader, and then underneath the leadership at Mars part 1, 2 and 3, which really take people through from the initial principles of leadership to how you manage a team, to how you lead others, and how you get to senior leader. Once you get into some of the senior leader roles, there's again some more specific and very focused training and coaching that support our senior leaders through the business. And then we start everything off at the beginning with an Essence of Mars program, which is an onboarding. So that really allowed us to sort of communicate and articulate how this supported the growth of our leaders. And what really changed in terms of how we delivered was all of our courses in the past tended to fall into this module 2 area, the classroom. They were all instructor-led sessions, and you'd bring people together for 5 days, and then people would go back out, and hopefully some of the learnings would stick, and they'd apply some of those principles. How we've done it now is looked around where can we utilise technology better, and where can technology start to help us with a truly blended program. And then also, what can we do after the learning to start to ensure that we're reinforcing and applying and embedding these principles. So the classroom still stays in place. It has a valuable role to play. We thought about, when we were in the classroom, what we're looking to do is try and develop competencies, and competencies consist of skills, behaviours, and knowledge and information. So what we thought was great opportunity to use the self-directed learning to do some of the knowledge and information, give some of the context, introduce the modules, make connections, and then really get the best value out of the classroom piece. So that's when you can get people doing the skills and behaviours in a safe environment. And then module 3, which is an extra 90 days, is all around how you apply it. So we have checkpoints every 30 days to check in with the peers who are on your group, to see what's going well, where you need some help. You have access to a coach through that process. And only when you've gone through that whole process after the 90 days do you get signed off as having completed the program. So that's where you start to see a shift into some of the application of the learning coming into play. And that's been a really powerful way of keeping the responsibility of the line manager through that whole program. And the other piece that we're looking to embed into this as much as possible is the 70-20-10 learning model. So you've got the 10% in the middle with a lot of the learning at the event, but 70% of the applying the knowledge on the job, the experiential stuff is in the module 3, and you've got some coaching and mentoring, which is playing around the 20% piece, learning from others. So once we'd achieved that, we started to think, so that's great, the leadership side of things is starting to embed. What about the rest of the business? So each of the functions, whether it's our commercial, our HR, sales, supply, we needed to also be putting some programs in place for them and thinking about how we're building the talent pipeline and how we're building the capability within the business. So we took the same principle of building this capability model and gave ourselves a challenge around what would this look like if we were successful? What do we really want the functional capabilities to deliver? And this was where we started to think about common terminology. So wherever you are in the business, you've got a way of looking at what your role is, what's expected, how to put a development plan together. And even if you want to look at a role in a different function in the business, you're able to do it using the same kind of framework. It's very transparent across all of the different functions. And the way that came to life is, now don't worry, I wasn't an optician in a previous life. I'm not going to ask you to read the top line on here or anything, but we had a model and every function was challenged to think about what are the capabilities that really bring this function to life, what make it operate. And they're in the middle of the circle. And the pieces around the side then are the supporting competencies that allow you to deliver that capability. And we took that and put it into a model whereby on the left-hand side, again, you've got in grey the capabilities and the supporting competencies next to it. And then we looked at what are the key roles within that function. So where are the anchor roles, where are the jobs that are going to support people's development, and then what level do they need to be operating against each one of those competencies. And that gave a real opportunity for people to be able to say, right, I'm in at role A, I need to be looking at competency B, and I need to be in an advanced, demonstrating advanced behaviour. And the way they checked that was that we've got definitions that they can look and they can just measure, am I actually demonstrating this? And of course, this is all in conjunction with the line management discussions as well. So it's not just your own self-assessment, you're actually working out where the development, strengths and development areas are. And of course, once we delivered all of that, we needed also to, so clearly we're beginning to say to people, you've got development areas in this particular competency, so we need to deliver some learning that then helps them develop and learn those competencies. So every function, again, was challenged to put a curriculum together, and the curriculum needed to have modules that supported the development of those competencies. So it gave a full picture. And we then developed a global course brochure that allows anyone to go in and be able to finish off that journey of looking at their role, what they should be doing, what level they're doing it, and if they have some development, how they can get that. So what impact are we having? And again, this is some numbers. You can see, I said we've got 71,000 associates. We've got just over half of those that are registered through our learning management system. And again, 20,000 of those are benefiting from our programs at the moment. You can see the sort of numbers around the courses we're delivering, the move into some of the blended learning offerings as well. So from an internal point of view, it's a pat on the back to say, yep, we're having an impact, we're getting some people through the training, which is good. There's a note at the bottom here as well that we're doing a big piece of work at the moment to change our metrics away from being very happy sheet driven, if you like, at the end of the course, to thinking about business impact. So how can we check whether people are actually identifying the right programs, they're getting the right thing when they go, their expectations are being met, and then 90 days after, they're actually starting to apply and benefit from it. So that allows us to have more impactful discussions with our senior managers if we can give metrics that are aligned to performance improvement. And it's not just internally, so we've got some great plaudits externally, we've got some recognition from corporate university. You can see this shift here from before we did the program around the strategic alignment, where it was best in business, to the excellence that's come since we started to apply this. So that's great, very rewarding to see that recognition. And in fact, this year as well, for the first time, Mars has actually been listed in the Fortune top 100 places to work. So again, it's nice to see that kind of recognition coming in from what we're trying to do. And just to finish the story, so it's not complete. The journey continues. Some really good stories there around how we've managed to embed it and how we're continuing to deploy it. It's obviously a long process getting this training available and accessible to everyone. But bringing this back a little bit now to my specific role, which is more around the technology side and how can we use technology to expand our brand promise. Then we've done a lot of effort to date in terms of establishing our global learning technologies area. So we've got services in place now so we can work with each one of the functions to develop e-learning. We do a lot of impactful, insightful video work where we just get senior managers to give messages that we can then cascade down through the organisation. And we've done a lot of work. This MSSM one that you see it's changing the shift a little bit from doing e-learning, which there's knowledge acquisition, knowledge transfer, to doing what we call e-application, which is more around the retention and the application of the knowledge. So how can we actually build on that learning and put together a performance support application? Which is all great. We're beginning to deliver some good modules and some engaging modules through that. But we've got some real challenges ahead as well. So for me, the next year, the next 18 months, I've got 4 key work streams that I've got to focus on. I've got to improve accessibility. We've got just over 50% of our associates who can access learning through the LMS at the moment. That's not enough. Whether we've got acquisitions, whether we've got geographies, whether we've got people in the sales force that can't access it, we've made a promise that it will be a single Marju experience, and we need to be able to deliver against that. We want to take people away from the system experience as well. So going straight into an LMS. We know that that's not the most engaging, intuitive way of discovering learning. How can we improve that with the use of something like a portal? And we want to get learning out to mobile devices. We want to get people peer learning. We want to get virtual environments in place. We need a strategy in order to be doing that in a consistent way, with the support of on-demand learning as well. So how can we have some off-the-shelf reference material that supports our portfolio? So those are my challenges for the next 18 months, and I'm sure there's people in the room who have actually faced into or are facing into some of those challenges already. And I would love to hear from anyone who thinks that they've got some experiences or stories that they can share with me in that area. So anything you've got to share, please let me know. And that's the Mars story.
Thanks very much, Nick. So both our speakers did a brilliant job and kept to time. So thank you very much, which means we've got about 15 minutes now for either questions or in response to Nick's request, any kind of advice you guys can share or any takeaways. And I've also got some questions come through from Twitter. People doing things with birds have sent some questions through. So I'm going to walk around with the microphone. Who's got a question like to start? I do need to make sure everyone's on the mic so that it's picked up on the video.
Hi, thanks. Is that right? Yeah? Okay, it's just a really simple question. Two great products, two great examples. Thanks for that. What would you have done differently now? Replaying that back to us. Or would you have done anything differently?
Oh my goodness.
You can take a moment, I think, if you need.
What would we have done differently? I probably would have set longer timescales. It was frenetic. It was certainly within HC1, we were in initiative overload, because everything had to change, from finance systems to procedures to uniforms to you name it, it had to change. And I had to go in with elbows to say my project's going to be the one on the top of this. So I sort of pushed everything out of the way. And maybe as to what we as HC1 would have done differently would have been to plan everything else that was going on. This was a major, major change for everyone within HC1. And whilst we knew it was going to happen before we even knew that HC1 was what it was going to be called, yes, I should have taken on board that everything else was going to be changing. So I would have given us longer timescales and better communication within the group as to my project leads out the way everybody else.
I guess for us, we did do something differently in 2010, and I think we learnt the lessons from what we'd done with the first iteration of Mars University, in that it became very distributed, it became very dispersed. And the big change was really putting some accountability and ownership at a global level. So we didn't have 5 people in sales that were responsible for training in different regions. You know, there was accountability at the top, and there was a real common set of strategic principles that we wanted to deliver against. And it just meant that the focus, the sponsorship and focus meant that we could cascade that down.
Any more questions?
Thanks. Both of you have exemplified how you invest in people. So how much this cost versus how much you think you've now got as a result of that investment. Have you been asked to do that? You don't have to tell us the numbers now, but have you gone down to that level? How much you spent versus how much you think you've got out of it?
Shall I answer first?
If you like.
I'm not going to be giving you numbers, you're quite right. However, it was the equivalent of a year's L&D budget, but we have now got that for the rest of time. And, to be able to do a project, and if any of you are embarking on this, make sure you've got your return on investment figures right, because, it's a no-brainer, as they say. It is worth every penny. It will be months, if not years, before we can actually say we've retained staff and we've done this, we've done that. We have a staff survey that goes out in February, so next month, and we did it bravely, I think, last February when we were only 2-3 months old. And we asked them a range of questions. Very few people filled it in because they didn't trust us. I think one of the things that we will get out of this year is I'm hoping they will trust us enough to fill it in, to say that yes, we can say we did listen and we made these changes. But most of all, we're going to be asking them about how confident they feel in their work, because it's high-risk stuff that we ask them to do with very little support. And we want them to say, I'm so much more confident. I love my job because I go home and I think, just with that one resident today, I got to just smile and enjoy it. And that's what matters, because then they'll stay with us. And the retention of our staff is paramount at the moment. So you can't put a cost on that. But, if there are always number crunchers, and there are probably quite a few in the room, who will say, we want to see our return on investment, but I can promise you it's there anyway.
Yeah, and I guess for us, the big thing that's changed is the nature of the discussions that we have. So, a couple of years ago, we were going in front of the senior leaders with our hands behind our back, saying how much we'd spent on training and trying to justify the return on investment with all of that. What we found now is that because of the work that we've been doing in this space and the alignment with the strategy, the alignment with our people strategy in particular, and we've got engagement measures where we ask people, are you getting the support to develop? Have you got the opportunities to learn and grow at work? And coupled with the output from all of those, and we see that they're on the increase, then the justification isn't there so much now. There's more of a trust and a belief. And I think what we see is, that obviously every function still has a budget and they have to work within that budget in order to deliver against the curriculum. But there's a core part of our corporate university now that's a corporate cost, and it just gets spread across the business as importantly as any of the other central functions that we have. And I think that's been the real tick for us in terms of the change in mentality.
Did I see a hand up over here?
Hi, I work for GE, so we have similar organization. I have a question because what I think interesting within your presentation, you link the leadership, the commercial, the different function. Is it under the HR head, or is it separated, the commercial side as well? Because within the issue that I'm facing in our company is that we are separating leadership that is part of HR, and the function is under the underhead of the other department. So we don't succeed to have a complete curriculum. We have a complete curriculum, but to have something organized and to get the buy-in and the engagement of the, I will say, of the executive and the CEO, because most of our, the CEO is mainly focusing on the leadership. So did you face the same issue in the past, Mars, where you are doing maybe leadership, we are splitting leadership and commercial before? You are always embedding all the different learning. I don't know.
Let me start answering that. If I'm going down the wrong track, then stop me. But so I think we used to have it that leadership was pretty much controlled within the function. So line managers within the function would be sent to training by the function. It wasn't something that was consistent and sponsored at the higher level. With the structure we've got now, we've got functional colleges, as we call within Mars University. So there's a sales college, an HR college, but there's a transversal college that runs along the top, which is the leadership college. And we've got compliance in place, for instance, that every new line manager has to go on the first one of the leadership programs within the first 18 months. And that's tracked and that's reported back through the business if they're not complying to that. So it's managed, I guess, outside of the function per se, but the functions are still accountable for making sure their people do.
It's under one umbrella.
Under one umbrella.
I got my...
Does that answer your question? Any other questions? If you haven't got questions, you can share your takeaways.
Sorry, just hopefully a quick one for Nick. Obviously, for Alison, it's quite obvious what the driver for change here was, but I'm curious for Mars what the driver was. I work for the Foreign Office, which is an organisation that obviously doesn't have a commercial bottom line, so getting management to buy into any kind of change agenda, particularly training, is quite difficult. So I'll be interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I guess there were probably 2 or 3 real triggers that instigated it. The one I would probably hold up as being the strongest is the leader of the organisation. So we had a very inspirational guy come in from externally who took control of the learning organisation and wasn't afraid to shake it to its roots a little bit and say, what do we need to do to become world class at this? And we started on a transformation programme then that said, so Corporate University, who we've worked with a bit, Corporate University Exchange, we held ourselves up and said, look, this is where we are. Tell us how we compare against other organisations that have a corporate university. And we learnt some pretty harsh truths in that. And I think it was the bravery of the guy who'd come in as a senior leader to say, let's hear it. And if we hear it, we know we can do something about it.
Can I ask a quick question, then come to you, Claire? A question for Alison. So you said that there were people choosing to take the learning at home rather than in the workplace, and I think that's probably something, seems quite remarkable to me. I don't know about anyone else. What do you think it is about your approach or your content that makes people want to give up their own time to take your training?
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Because this is, during the workshops, a lot of the managers would say, when are they going to do this training? The fact that, they'd rostered on whole days for the people not to be there to do their training in workshops surprised me. But they said, they're not going to work at home unless you pay them. So I made it very clear we wouldn't be paying them if they worked from home, despite the fact it's compliance training. It's their choice if they work at home. And I know from the past, having implemented programs like this, that a lot of people like to be able to go into their own comfort zone and work quietly without interruption or without someone looking over their shoulder, to be able to do it, perhaps turn it off and go and feed the dog or whatever it is they want to do, but do it in their own time. And they can also link to other things, perhaps, that take their interest. It's always surprising the number of people that will work from home and then come back to their care home or their office environment, wherever they work, to do their offline activity, to make it more relevant. And it's surprising. And another statistic that really did surprise me, of course, we run 24 hours a day services, but some early statistics that we looked at was that 41% of the people who logged online did so between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. So night staff too, for the first time, were accessing training in their own time, or it was people at home working. So it was always surprising, and we've only had from one home a demand for payment for people who work from home. But the answer is still no.
It's more of a takeaway. It just seemed that the goal to be the kindest care homes in the UK is inspirational as a goal. From a sales perspective, I mean, I want to put my mother in that home if it's the kindest.
Come along.
Sorry, Mummy. From a sales perspective, from a motivation of staff and pride, to actually say to people, I'm proud because our aim is to be the kindest care home. I mean, it must just, although you said it was not a box-ticking exercise and you were moving away from that, it seems that it ticks all the boxes.
It does, thank you. And I thought it very brave. And when I first saw our logo, HC1, which now we use the tag HC1 of a kind, and even our letterheads and things have always used the word kind in it, because we have different straplines. But it was very brave, and I thought, we're going to stand up and we're going to own this. We're going to get it wrong lots of times, and people are going to say, you've not met your promise, but that's what we are striving for, and that's what people believe in now, and that's what they try to deliver. And we're just there to help them. So yes, it is brave. It is brave.
I think actually my takeaway links to that, because both of you talked quite a lot about the effort you've put into brand and marketing and comms, and it's something that at BP we're trying to improve on, so I've got some good ideas from both of you.
Thank you. Nick, so you don't feel left out, I love Mars Bars. Nick, one thing you touched on, just on the subject of metrics and kind of going beyond happy sheets, as, you know, after training events, just interested to know how you get people engaging in that, because we find that the further people are away from the training or the learning that they've taken on, the harder it is to get the metrics back from them. So we use Kirkpatrick, but the further down the line we get, the less forthcoming people are in sharing that. So it makes it harder getting the metrics. Don't know whether you've got anything to share in terms of how you managed to achieve that.
No, it's a great question, and you know, we're in the very early days of this in terms of thinking differently around how we do our metrics. But the reason that we've looked in, you know, 90 days it's deliberate in some respects, because when I talked about the leadership program, that last phase of the application is 90 days. So people stay connected to the program through that, and it gives us a chance at the end of the full program to then say, right, how are you doing in applying the learning, and how well is it supporting a performance change for you? So we're looking to embed it into all of the programs that we run in how it can become almost seamless, rather than it's a system-generated, you know, note that comes in and people ignore it after. I mean, they ignore the ones that come out a day after the training, let alone 90 days after them. So that is going to be a challenge. The response rates are a critical success factor for us, but we keep emphasising as well that there's a line manager responsibility in this, you know, so we're looking for them to support it, and also we're investing in an associate by giving them development. Therefore, the responsibility back from them is to give us feedback on how well it's working for them.
We're going to have to stop it there. It's coffee time, you'll probably be glad to know. I'm sure that both Alison and Nick will be around today and probably tomorrow as well if you want to pick up any more questions. They're both on Twitter, so you can chat to them on there as well. I'm trying to encourage them to be more active Twitter users. But for now, let's just say thanks to Nick and Alison.